The great space station Unity's Hope floated in the darkness between stars like a massive metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports. Inside its halls, creatures with scales, fur, and strange colors walked together. They came here to talk, trade, and make deals that kept peace across the galaxy. Captain Marcus Vale sat at a large round table in the main meeting room. His dark hair was starting to turn gray at the edges. Next to him sat Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a woman who studied alien life forms. On his other side was Commander James Wright, a tall man who kept his hand close to his weapon out of habit. Around the table sat representatives from 12 different species. There was Ambassador Thek, whose blue skin seemed to glow in the soft light. General Brix had thick armor covering his massive frame. The thin, spider-like creature called Speaker Vex clicked its claws against the table as it talked. They had been meeting for 3 days, trying to work out a new trade agreement. The humans wanted fair prices for their food crops. The aliens wanted access to human medical technology. It was slow work, but Marcus believed they were making progress. The shipping routes through Sector 7 need better protection, Dr. Rodriguez was saying. She pulled up a holographic map that showed the trade lanes between different worlds. Our merchant ships are reporting strange readings near the Void Belt. Ambassador Thek's large eyes blinked slowly. The Helix Confederation can provide escort ships for a small fee. How small? Commander Wright asked. He never trusted deals that sounded too good. Before Thek could answer, the lights in the room flashed red 3 times. Everyone looked up. A red flash meant urgent news was coming from Earth. Marcus touched his communication device. Vale here. The voice that came through made everyone in the room go quiet. It was Admiral Morrison from Earth Command. Her voice shook with anger that she was trying to control. Captain Vale, I need you to receive emergency transmission 77 Alpha. Clear the room of non-humans immediately. Marcus felt his stomach drop. In 30 years of service, he had never heard an admiral give that order. Understood, Admiral. Stand by. He looked around the table. I apologize, but I need to ask our friends to step outside for a moment. This appears to be internal human business. The aliens looked confused but began to leave. Ambassador Thek paused at the door. Captain, if there is trouble, the Confederation stands ready to help. Thank you, Ambassador. I hope that won't be necessary. When the door closed, Marcus activated the secure channel. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the large screen. Her usually calm expression was gone. Her jaw was tight and her eyes held a cold fire that made Marcus nervous. Captain, at 0800 Earth time today, the colony world New Terra went silent. We sent 3 scout ships to investigate. She paused and took a deep breath. New Terra is gone, Marcus. Every human settlement has been destroyed. 2 million civilians are dead. Dr. Rodriguez gasped and covered her mouth. Commander Wright's hand moved to his weapon without thinking. Who? Marcus asked. His voice came out as a whisper. The Crimson Dominion. General Vorthak's ships were detected leaving the system. They didn't even try to hide their energy signatures. They wanted us to know it was them. Marcus closed his eyes. New Terra had been a peaceful farming world. Families lived there. Children played in the fields between the crops. Now they were all dead. What are our orders, Admiral? You are to terminate all negotiations immediately. Inform the Council that humanity is withdrawing from every treaty and agreement with any nation that has ties to the Crimson Dominion. That includes the Amber Republic, the Steel Brotherhood, and the Outer Rim Coalition. Commander Wright stood up. Admiral, that's half the galaxy. Those species have been our allies for decades. Not anymore, Commander. They chose their side when they decided to stay neutral while the Dominion murdered our people. Dr. Rodriguez looked at the star chart still glowing above the table. Elena to Admiral Morrison. What about the families? There are human civilians living on dozens of worlds throughout Dominion space. They have 72 hours to evacuate. After that, we cannot guarantee their safety. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. He had served in the Human Defense Force for 25 years. He had seen combat during the border wars and the pirate crisis. But this was different. This was not about territory or resources. This was about making someone pay. Admiral, are we going to war? Captain Vale, we have been at war since the moment the first civilian died on New Terra. The Dominion just doesn't know it yet. The transmission ended. The 3 humans sat in silence for a long moment. Outside the meeting room, they could hear the normal sounds of the station. Aliens talking in different languages, Ships docking and leaving. Life going on as if the galaxy had not just changed forever. Marcus stood up slowly. Elena, send a message to all human civilians in Dominion space. Tell them to get out now. Use the emergency evacuation codes. James, contact the human ships currently docked here. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure. Commander Wright nodded. What about the peace talks? There are no more peace talks. Marcus walked to the door and opened it. The alien representatives were waiting in the hallway. They looked worried. They could sense that something bad had happened. Friends, Marcus said, his voice calm and steady. I regret to inform you that these negotiations are concluded. Humanity withdraws from all treaties with nations allied to the Crimson Dominion. Ambassador Thek stepped forward. Captain, what has happened? Perhaps we can help solve this problem. Marcus looked at the blue-skinned diplomat. Thek was a good person who genuinely wanted peace, but peace was no longer possible. The Crimson Dominion has committed genocide against human civilians. 2 million people are dead, including children. The aliens began talking all at once. Some expressed shock. Others tried to offer help. General Brix, whose people had fought the Dominion before, nodded grimly. Dr. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. You have 72 hours to evacuate non-combatants from Dominion space. After that, we cannot be responsible for what happens to them. Speaker Vex clicked its claws nervously. Surely this calls for a council meeting. We can discuss sanctions, maybe a trade embargo. Marcus looked at the spider-like creature. There will be no more discussions. No more committees. No more chances. He turned and walked back into the meeting room. Dr. Rodriguez and Commander Wright followed him. The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the hallway, the alien representatives stood in shocked silence. They had known humans for 30 years as the species that always wanted to talk instead of fight. The species that brought food to refugee camps and medicine to plague worlds. The species that stopped wars instead of starting them. None of them had ever seen humans when their patience finally ran out. Ambassador Thek touched his communication device with a shaking hand. Get me the Confederation Council immediately. Tell them to prepare for emergency session. And contact our military advisors. I think we are about to see a side of humanity that we never knew existed. As the word spread throughout the station, and then throughout the galaxy, one thing became very clear. The age of human patience was over. The day humanity's tolerance snapped, and no species ever forgot, 3 days had passed since the news of New Terra reached the galaxy. Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Retribution, watching dozens of human ships move through space in perfect formation. She was a small woman with short red hair, but her voice carried the authority of someone who had spent her life preparing for this moment. Admiral, called Lieutenant Parker from the communication station. All fleet commanders report ready. Operation Righteous Fury is a go. Kate nodded. Begin Phase 1. Across the galaxy, alien governments watched their screens in growing horror. Human fleets were moving everywhere at once. Ships that had been protecting trade routes suddenly left their posts. Vessels that had been on peaceful missions changed course without explanation. Even human exploration ships far from home began heading toward Dominion space. On the planet Xerion Prime, Ambassador Thek sat in his office, staring at reports that made no sense. In just 3 days, humanity had assembled the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. But that was impossible. The humans only had a few hundred warships. The reports showed thousands. His aide, a young woman named Kira, entered the room carrying a data pad. Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They want to speak with you directly. Put it through. The screen lit up to show a human man in military uniform. He had Asian features and calm dark eyes that seemed to look right through Thek. His voice was polite but cold. Ambassador Thek, I am Lieutenant Colonel David Park of the Human Defense Force. I am calling to inform you that 3 Crimson Dominion military advisors are currently hiding on your world. You have 6 hours to turn them over to us. Thek felt his blue skin turn pale. Colonel Park, Xerion Prime is a neutral world. We do not take sides in conflicts between other species. That neutrality ended when you decided to protect the people who murdered our children. We are not protecting anyone. We simply follow the ancient laws of sanctuary that have kept peace for centuries. Colonel Park's expression did not change. Ambassador, you... The day humanity's tolerance snapped, and no species ever forgot our government has 6 hours to deliver General Kazak, Colonel Breathen, and Major Dex to our ships. If you refuse, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind that make very clear why neutrality is no longer an option. The transmission ended. Thek sat back in his chair, his mind racing. The 3 Dominion officers had arrived 2 days ago, claiming to be on a diplomatic mission. Everyone knew they were really spies. But Zarion had always followed the old rules about giving shelter to anyone who asked. Kira, contact the council. Tell them we need an emergency meeting. Sir, what if the humans are serious about these consequences? Tech looked out his window at the peaceful city below. Families walked through parks. Children played in the streets. The humans have always been reasonable people. I'm sure we can work something out. 6 hours later, Thek learned how wrong he was. The attack came at exactly the moment Colonel Park had promised. But it was not the kind of attack anyone expected. 3 buildings in the city simply disappeared. Not destroyed by explosions or burned by energy weapons. They were gone, turned into dust so fine it blew away in the wind. The 3 buildings had been the ones where the Dominion officers were hiding. Nothing else in the city was touched. A flower shop next to one of the buildings did not even lose a window. Children playing in a park across the street were not hurt. The humans had somehow removed only the exact targets they wanted. Thek's communication device buzzed. Colonel Park's calm face appeared on the screen again. The 3 officers you were protecting are dead. The people of Zarion are safe. We hope this demonstrates that humanity can be very precise when necessary. How did you do that? What kind of weapon can destroy a building but leave everything around it untouched? The kind of weapon that a species develops when they spend 30 years pretending to be peaceful, while secretly preparing for war. The transmission ended again. Thek realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. Meanwhile, on the Crimson Dominion command ship Eternal Glory, General Vorthak paced back and forth in his war room. He was a massive creature with thick red skin and tusks that curved from his lower jaw. His species had conquered dozens of worlds through strength and brutality. They did not understand fear, but the reports coming in made no sense. General, called his aide Colonel Moore, a smaller version of Vorthak with nervous yellow eyes. We're receiving updates from the outer colonies. What updates? Sir, 17 colonies have fallen to human forces in the past 48 hours. Vorthak stopped pacing. 17? How many humans were killed in these attacks? Colonel Moore checked his datapad. None, sir. None? That's impossible. You cannot conquer 17 worlds without taking casualties. Sir, the humans didn't conquer them. They just arrived and the colony surrendered immediately. Cowards. Our people should fight to the death before surrendering to these weak humans. General, I don't think our people had a choice. The humans seemed to know exactly where every weapon was stored, every defense position, every escape route. They cut off power, communications, and supply lines before anyone even knew they were there. Vorthak grabbed the datapad and read the reports himself. The same pattern appeared over and over. Human ships would arrive at a Dominion world. Within hours, all military facilities would shut down. Any ships that tried to escape would be disabled but not destroyed. Any soldiers who tried to fight would find their weapons had stopped working. Then human soldiers would land and politely ask the colony governor to surrender. When the governor refused, the humans would show them a list of every person on the planet, their exact location, and their personal information. The message was clear. We know everything about you and resistance is pointless. Sir, Colonel Moore said quietly, there's something else. The humans are not treating prisoners badly. They're giving them food and medical care. Some reports say the prisoners are being treated better than our own soldiers treat each other. Vorthak threw the datapad across the room. I don't understand these humans. They fight like demons but act like saints. How can we defeat an enemy that makes no sense? Perhaps we should consider negotiating with them. Never. We are the Crimson Dominion. We do not negotiate with anyone. But even as Vorthak spoke, he could see the fear in Colonel Moore's eyes. His soldiers were starting to realize they were fighting something they had never encountered before. An enemy that seemed to know everything could strike anywhere, and showed mercy only when it chose to. Back on the Retribution, Admiral Morrison received reports from across the battle zone. Her tactical officer, Commander Lisa Thompson, marked each successful operation on the star map. Admiral, the Xerian demonstration has had the desired effect. 12 neutral worlds have already agreed to expel Dominion forces. What about civilian evacuations? Ahead of schedule. It seems the non-human species are taking our warnings seriously. Admiral Morrison nodded. The humans had learned something important over the past 30 years of peace. Other species fought with emotion. They got angry. They wanted revenge. They made mistakes because they let their feelings control their actions. Humans had learned to turn off their emotions when necessary. They could feel grief for their dead children and cold calculation for their enemies at the same time. It made them something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that could wage war with the precision of scientists and the determination of parents protecting their young. Commander Thompson, send a message to all Dominion forces. Tell them they have 24 hours to surrender General Vorthak for trial. After that, we stop being gentle. Yes, Admiral. Should I mention what happens if they refuse? Admiral Morrison looked at the star map showing Dominion space. Millions of people lived on those worlds. Most of them had nothing to do with the attack on New Terra, but their leaders had chosen to follow a general who murdered children. No, let them wonder. Fear of the unknown is often more effective than knowledge of the inevitable. As the message went out across the galaxy, alien species began to understand something that would change everything. The humans they thought they knew had been wearing a mask for 30 years. That mask was now off, and what lay beneath was something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The day humanity's tolerance snapped and no species ever forgot, the human fleet surrounded the Dominion home system like a steel net. Admiral Morrison stood on her bridge, watching hundreds of enemy ships take defensive positions around their capital world. For the first time in the war, the Dominion had managed to gather a force that outnumbered the humans. Admiral, called Commander Thompson, enemy fleet shows 2,000 ships. We have 800. Understood. Signal all ships to hold position. No aggressive actions. On planets across the galaxy, aliens watched the news broadcasts in confusion. The humans had spent weeks proving they could win any battle. Now they faced their largest enemy force and just stopped moving. Some species thought the humans were finally showing caution. Others wondered if this was another strange human strategy. Council Representative Nile of the Amber Republic sat in his office on the neutral world of Haven, studying intelligence reports. His people had been allies with humanity for 15 years. He thought he understood them. These reports made him question everything. "Sir," said his assistant Beck, a young man with worried eyes, "we're receiving reports from the refugee camps near the battle zone." "What kind of reports?" "Human medical ships are providing aid to Dominion civilians who fled the fighting. They're giving them food, medicine, and temporary shelter." Nile stared at the report. "They're helping the families of their enemies." "Yes, sir. The refugees say the human doctors are treating Dominion children with the same care they give their own people. That makes no sense. How can they show such kindness while preparing for battle?" Beck pulled up another file. "Sir, there's more. We intercepted some human military communications. They're discussing the final assault on the Dominion capital." "What did they say?" "They were talking about acceptable casualty rates and efficiency optimization. But sir, they discussed killing thousands of enemy soldiers the same way our people talk about building a new bridge." Nile felt a chill run down his spine. "Play the recording." The voices that came through the speakers sounded completely calm. Captain Lisa Thompson was coordinating with other ship commanders about attack patterns. She mentioned destroying enemy ships and killing soldiers without any emotion at all. She could have been reading a grocery list. "Phase 3 will target military installations only," Thompson's voice said. "Estimated enemy casualties are within acceptable parameters. Civilian areas will remain untouched unless they contain military targets." Another voice responded. "Understood. Medical teams are standing by to treat enemy wounded after surrender." Nile turned off the recording. "They're going to kill their enemies and then heal them?" "It appears so, sir." "What kind of species can turn their emotions on and off like a switch?" Beck looked at the intelligence files scattered across the desk. "According to our xenopsychologists, humans are the only known species that can separate emotional response from tactical thinking. They can feel grief and rage while making completely logical decisions." "That's terrifying." "Yes, sir. It means they never make mistakes because they're angry. But they never show mercy because they feel sorry for their enemies either." Meanwhile, on the Dominion flagship Eternal Glory, General Vorthak received his final intelligence briefing. Colonel Moore stood before him with a datapad full of information that made victory seem impossible. General, our spies have intercepted human battle plans. Finally. What are their weaknesses? Sir, they don't appear to have any. Every ship knows exactly what to do. Every captain has backup plans for situations that haven't happened yet. They've wargamed scenarios we haven't even thought of. Vorthak's tusks ground together in frustration. There must be something. Every species has weaknesses. Humans are supposed to be soft and emotional. Sir, that appears to be exactly backwards. Our psychologists studied recordings of human commanders during the recent battles. They show no emotional responses to casualties. No anger when plans fail. No celebration when they succeed. They just adapt and continue. Are they machines? No, sir. That's what makes them so dangerous. They feel everything we feel, but they can choose when to let those feelings affect their actions. Colonel Moore pulled up a recording on his datapad. It showed Captain Marcus Vale from the peace station, speaking to his officers after receiving news about New Terra. Watch his face when he first hears about the genocide, Moore said. Vorthak saw the human captain's expression change. For just a moment, Vale looked like he was in terrible pain. His eyes showed grief and rage that any soldier would recognize. Now watch what happens next. Vale's face became completely calm. The emotions were still there, hidden behind his eyes, but they no longer controlled his actions. He began giving orders with the precision of a computer. They can feel everything and think through it at the same time, Moore explained. It's like fighting an enemy that has all the passion of a berserker and all the control of a machine. Vorthak stood up and walked to the window of his command ship. Outside, he could see the human fleet maintaining perfect formation. No ships moved out of position. No commanders made aggressive moves to try for personal glory. They simply waited with the patience of predators. Sir, there's something else. We've been monitoring communications from their homeworlds. What are they saying? The civilian population is completely calm. No protests against the war. No demands to bring their soldiers home. They appear to view this as a necessary task that must be completed. Even though thousands of their people might die? Sir, they buried 2 million civilians last week. They seem to view military casualties as an acceptable price for justice. Vorthak felt something he had never experienced before. His species had conquered worlds through fear and brutality. They understood enemies who fought from anger or desperation. But an enemy that fought from cold calculation was something they had no experience with. General, Moore said quietly, our officers are asking for permission to surrender. What? Sir, the lower ranks are scared. They've never faced an enemy like this. Some are saying it would be better to surrender now than face whatever the humans are planning. Vorthak wanted to rage at his soldiers for being cowards. But looking at the human fleet, he was starting to understand their fear. The humans were not just winning the war. They were rewriting the rules of how war was fought. Admiral Morrison's voice suddenly filled the communication channels of every ship in the system. Her words were broadcast on every frequency, translated into every language. General Vorthak of the Crimson Dominion, you have 24 hours to surrender yourself for trial in the genocide of New Terra. If you refuse, your species will learn what humans call total war. The communication ended. In the silence that followed, Vorthak realized that for the first time in his life, he was truly afraid. On his bridge, Colonel Moore looked at the tactical displays showing human ships positioned around every escape route. Sir, what is total war? Vorthak did not answer because he did not know. But he suspected that whatever the humans had shown them so far was just the beginning. They had been gentle because they wanted to minimize casualties. If that gentleness ended, there was no telling what they might be capable of. Around the galaxy, alien leaders watched and waited. Some began to understand that they were witnessing the birth of a new age, an age where humanity would no longer be the patient mediators seeking peaceful solutions. The humans had shown them precision warfare, surgical strikes, and mercy for the innocent. But they had also shown something else, the terrifying control of a species that could fight a war without letting emotion cloud their judgment. As the 24-hour deadline began counting down, everyone in the galaxy held their breath. They were about to learn what happened when humanity stopped being patient. The day humanity's tolerance snapped, and no species ever forgot. 23 hours and 47 minutes after Admiral Morrison's ultimatum, General Vorthak made his choice. Standing on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, Surrounded by officers who could no longer hide their fear, he activated the fleet-wide communication system. All Dominion ships, this is General Vorthak. We surrender. The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but the alternative was too terrible to consider. Around him, his officers seemed to breathe for the first time in hours. Admiral Morrison's response came quickly. General, you will report to the neutral station Unity's Hope within 48 hours to face trial for genocide. Your fleet will remain in position and await further instructions. What about my soldiers? What about my people? Your soldiers will be processed according to human military law. Your civilians will be protected under the terms of the Geneva Conventions, unlike your treatment of our people on New Terra. The surrender was broadcast across the galaxy within minutes. On hundreds of worlds, alien species watched in amazement as the most powerful military empire in their sector gave up without firing a shot. 3 days later, Unity's Hope Station buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of species arrived to witness the trial. The main courtroom had been expanded to hold the crowds, but the atmosphere was nothing like the angry mob trials that other species were used to. Judge Patricia Wells entered the courtroom wearing simple black robes. She was an elderly human woman with gray hair and calm blue eyes. She looked more like someone's grandmother than the person who would decide the fate of a genocidal general. This court is now in session, she said in a quiet voice that somehow carried to every corner of the room. The defendant will state his name for the record. General Vorthak stood up slowly. Even in chains, he was an impressive figure. His red skin and massive tusks made him look like something from a nightmare. But next to the small human judge, he seemed somehow diminished. I am General Kazak Vorthak of the Crimson Dominion. General Vorthak, you are charged with genocide, crimes against humanity, and violations of interstellar law. How do you plead? Vorthak's lawyer, a nervous Helix Confederation attorney named Dex Quarrel, whispered urgently in his ear. But Vorthak shook his head. I plead guilty to all charges. A murmur ran through the courtroom. In most alien legal systems, guilty pleas were rare. Defendants usually fought until the end, hoping for mercy or reduced sentences. Judge Wells nodded calmly. The court accepts your plea. Prosecutor Foster, please present your evidence. Michael Foster stood up. He was a tall human man with dark skin and silver hair. He had been Earth's top war crimes prosecutor for 20 years, but he had never handled a case this large, Your Honor. The evidence will show that General Vorthak deliberately ordered the extermination of every human, civilian on New Terra. This was not a military action, but a calculated genocide designed to terrorize humanity into submission. What followed was 3 days of testimony that shocked even the alien observers who thought they understood the scope of the crime. Prosecutor Foster presented evidence with the methodical precision that had become humanity's trademark. Every civilian death was documented. Every family was named. Every child was remembered. The prosecutor did not raise his voice or appeal to emotion. He simply laid out the facts like a scientist presenting research data. The most disturbing testimony came from Lieutenant Hannah Clark, one of only 12 humans who survived the attack on New Terra. She was a young woman with brown hair and scars on her face from the energy weapons that had destroyed her home. Lieutenant Clark, Prosecutor Foster said gently, please tell the court what you witnessed. Hannah's voice was steady but empty of emotion. I was visiting my sister's family when the attack began. The Dominion ships targeted the civilian areas first. Schools, hospitals, residential districts. They wanted to make sure no non-combatants could escape. What happened to your family? My sister Maria was killed in the first wave. Her husband Tom died trying to protect their children. Their son Alex was 7 years old. Their daughter Sophie was 5. How did you survive? I was trapped in the basement when our house collapsed. I could hear the children crying for help, but I couldn't reach them. After 3 hours, the crying stopped. Hannah spoke about watching her family die with the same tone she might use to give a weather report. The alien observers began to understand something disturbing about human psychology. The young woman was not being cold or uncaring. She was protecting herself from emotions that would destroy her if she let them in. But the humans in the courtroom understood. Every human face showed the same controlled expression. They were all feeling Hannah's pain, but they were not letting it overwhelm them. They were saving their emotions for later when justice was done. Dr. Elena Rodriguez took the stand on the second day to explain human psychology to the alien observers. She spoke in simple terms that everyone could understand. Many species believe that humans are naturally peaceful because we seek negotiated solutions to conflicts. This is incorrect. Humans are naturally aggressive, like most predator species. What makes us unusual is our ability to control that aggression. Can you explain what you mean by control? Asked Prosecutor Foster. Humans can separate emotional response from logical analysis. We can feel rage while making calm decisions. We can experience grief while planning complex operations. This allows us to be more effective in both war and peace. Is this ability common among intelligent species? No. Most species make decisions based on their emotional state. They fight when angry, flee when afraid, negotiate when hopeful. Humans can choose when to let emotions influence their actions. Ambassador Thek, watching from the gallery, finally understood why the war had been so one-sided. His people made military decisions based on honor and courage. Other species fought for glory or revenge. But humans fought like they were solving a mathematical equation. The final witness was Colonel Yelton Drace, one of Vorthak's former officers, who had surrendered after seeing the human military in action. He was a smaller version of Vorthak, with nervous yellow eyes and a voice that shook when he spoke. Colonel Drace, Prosecutor Foster said, "Why did you advise General Vorthak to surrender?" "Because we realized we were not fighting soldiers. We were fighting something we had no defense against." "Please explain." "The humans fight without emotion. When we killed their civilians, they did not respond with anger. They responded with calculation. They studied our tactics, identified our weaknesses, and eliminated our advantages with scientific precision." "Did this surprise you?" "Sir, we expected them to make mistakes because they were angry about their dead. Instead, they used their anger as fuel for planning. They felt everything we felt, but they never let it cloud their judgment. In your opinion, could the Dominion have won this war?" Colonel Drace looked at Vorthak, then back at the prosecutor. "No, sir. We never had a chance. We were fighting an enemy that had spent 30 years preparing for war while pretending to want peace. They know everything about us and we know nothing about them." On the third day, Judge Wells announced her verdict. The courtroom was completely silent as she spoke. "General Vorthak, the evidence shows that you ordered the deliberate murder of 2 million innocent civilians. This was not a military action but an act of terrorism designed to break the human spirit." She paused and looked directly at the general. "You failed. Instead of breaking humanity, you revealed their true nature to the galaxy. You showed everyone that peaceful does not mean weak, and patient does not mean passive. I sentence you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your days thinking about the children you murdered and the war you started that you could never win." As the guards led Vorthak away, Admiral Morrison stood up in the gallery. Her voice carried clearly through the courtroom. "Let the record show that humanity hereby establishes the new Terra Protocols. Any species that commits genocide against human civilians will face the full might of human military forces. There will be no negotiations. There will be no mercy. There will only be justice." The alien representatives returned to their home worlds carrying recordings of the trial and a new understanding of human nature. The galaxy had learned that humanity's 30 years of peace had not been weakness but preparation. The age of human patience was over. The age of human justice had begun. The day humanity's tolerance snapped, and no species ever forgot, 1 year after the trial of General Vorthak, the galaxy had settled into a new normal. Trade routes that had been dangerous for decades were now safe. Pirate attacks had almost disappeared. Wars between smaller species ended quickly when human mediators arrived to establish peace. But some beings had not learned the lesson. Captain Robert Hayes stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Vigilance, reading reports from the merchant ship Blue Horizon. His ship was part of the patrol fleet that protected the shipping lanes between the Amber Republic and the Helix Confederation. "Captain," called his communications officer, Lieutenant Sam Rivers, "we're receiving a distress call from the trading station Harmony Point. What's the situation?" "Pirates, sir. The Void Syndicate has taken control of the station and is demanding tribute from all ships in the area." Hayes sighed. The Void Syndicate was a collection of criminal clans that had avoided human attention by staying in the empty regions between major trade routes. Apparently, they thought the new Terra War was ancient history. "How many civilian ships are trapped at the station?" 17, sir, including passenger liners with families aboard. Set course for Harmony Point maximum speed. The Vigilance arrived at the trading station 6 hours later. Hayes could see immediately that the pirates had made a serious mistake. Harmony Point was a civilian station with no military defenses. The attack was not about territory or resources. It was about terrorizing innocent people for money. Lieutenant Rivers, open a channel to the pirate fleet. Channel open. Sir. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Warlord Drex Kylom, leader of the Void Syndicate. He was a massive creature with green scales and yellow eyes that gleamed with greed. His ship, the Blood Reaper, was covered in weapons taken from defeated enemies. Ah, a human ship, Drex laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. I was wondering when you people would show up. Don't worry, I'll make this simple for you. I'm listening. The ships trapped at this station each pay me 100,000 credits, or I start killing passengers, starting with the children. Hayes felt something cold settle in his chest. It was the same feeling Admiral Morrison had described before the Dominion War. The moment when human patience transformed into something else entirely. Warlord Kylom, you have one opportunity to release those ships and surrender yourself for trial. Drex laughed louder. Surrender? Human, you have one ship. I have 12. You're outnumbered and outgunned. I suggest you turn around and go home before I decide to add your ship to my collection. I'm afraid that's not possible. Then you're going to die for nothing. My people have been raiding in this sector for 20 years. We're not scared of one human destroyer. Hayes looked at his tactical officer, Commander Ann Price. She was a young woman with red hair and the same calm expression that had become the trademark of human military officers. Commander, how long to disable all pirate vessels without destroying them? Ann checked her displays. 14 minutes, sir. Do it. Wait. Drex shouted from the screen. You can't attack us. I have hostages. Hayes looked at the pirate leader with the same expression he might use when looking at a bug. No. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Harmony Point demonstration. Human military archives would later list it as a textbook example of precision warfare. The Vigilance moved through the pirate fleet like a surgeon's blade. Energy weapons disabled ship engines without destroying hulls. Boarding pods attached to pirate vessels with mathematical precision. Human soldiers flowed through enemy ships, stunning crew members and securing prisoners without killing anyone. Within 14 minutes, every pirate ship was dead in space. Within 20 minutes, every pirate leader was in custody. The entire operation was conducted without a single civilian casualty. Trade Commissioner Vel Nargon of the Helix Confederation watched the operation from his passenger liner. He had seen military actions before, but nothing like this. The humans moved with the precision of machines and the efficiency of predators. Commissioner, said his aide Reyna, should we offer assistance? With what? They're already finished. On his communication device, Vel could hear the human soldiers as they cleared the pirate ships. Their voices were calm and professional, like workers completing a routine task. Deck 7 secured. 18 prisoners, no resistance. Engine room controlled. Their weapons are offline. Bridge taken. Warlord Kylom is in custody. There was no excitement in their voices, no celebration of victory. They sounded like technicians completing a maintenance schedule. Vel activated his recorder and began documenting what he had witnessed. His government would want a full report on human military capabilities. Personal log, Commissioner Vel Nargon. I have just observed a human military operation against the Void Syndicate. The pirates outnumbered the humans 12-1. The engagement lasted 14 minutes. Human casualties, 0. Pirate casualties, 0. Civilian casualties, 0. He paused, trying to find words for what he had seen. The humans did not fight with anger or hatred. They approached the battle like engineers solving a technical problem. They disabled their enemies with the same efficiency they might use to repair a broken machine. Captain Hayes's voice came over the station's communication system. All civilian ships are free to continue their journeys. The pirate threat has been eliminated. Vel looked out. His window at the disabled pirate ships. Human rescue crews were already providing medical aid to wounded pirates and checking their life support systems. They're treating their prisoners better than the pirates treated each other, Rena observed. That's what makes them so dangerous, Vel replied. They can be completely ruthless and completely merciful at the same time. The news of Harmony Point spread across the galaxy within days. Shipping insurance rates dropped to historic lows in human-protected space. Pirate activity decreased by 90%. 3 different species formally requested human military advisors. On the former Dominion world of Zerion Prime, Ambassador Thek received a visit from Colonel Drace, who now worked as a military reform consultant. The former Dominion officer had spent the past year studying human military doctrine. "Ambassador," Drace said, "my people have been analyzing human tactics since the war ended. We think we understand why they're so effective. Please explain." "Most species fight to win battles. Humans fight to solve problems. They don't care about glory or honor or proving their strength. They just want to eliminate whatever threat they're facing as efficiently as possible." Thek poured tea for his guest. "Is that why they show mercy to defeated enemies?" "Exactly. Killing prisoners doesn't solve any problems. It just creates new ones. But humans also understand that some problems require extreme solutions, like General Vorthok. He threatened human civilians, so they removed him from the equation. The Void Syndicate threatened innocents, so they eliminated the threat. It's not personal for them. It's just mathematics. That's a terrifying way to think about war. Ambassador, it's a terrifying way to think about everything. Humans approach every problem the same way. They study it, plan a solution, and execute that solution with perfect efficiency." Thek looked out his window at the peaceful city below. Zerion had prospered under human protection. Crime was down. Trade was up. The population felt safer than they had in decades. But they're also the most reliable allies in the galaxy. If you're their friend, they'll protect you with the same efficiency they use to destroy their enemies. On Earth, in the memorial gardens built to honor the victims of New Terra, Captain Marcus Vale walked among the flowers planted in memory of 2 million dead civilians. He had retired from active duty after the war, but he still came here to remember. A group of young aliens on an educational tour approached him. Their teacher, a Helix Confederation scholar named Dr. Kira Thane, recognized him from the historical records. "Excuse me," said one of the students, a small creature with blue fur and large eyes. "Are you Captain Vale? The one who was at Unity's Hope when the war started?" "I am. Can I ask you a question?" "Of course. My teacher says humans are dangerous, but you seem very nice. Are humans really as scary as everyone says?" Marcus knelt down to the student's level. Around them, flowers bloomed in memory of children who would never grow up. "We're exactly as dangerous as we need to be," he said gently. "The choice of how dangerous that is lies with those who would threaten innocent lives." The student looked confused. "I don't understand." "It means we prefer to be gardeners," Marcus explained, gesturing at the peaceful memorial around them. "But when someone tries to destroy our gardens, we become something else entirely." Dr. Thane led her students to the memorial wall, where the names of every New Terra victim were carved in black stone. At the bottom was a simple inscription that had become famous throughout the galaxy. "Never again. Never forgotten. Never forgiven." The students read the words in silence. They were too young to remember the war, but they lived in the galaxy that war had created, a galaxy where human patience was no longer taken for granted, and human friendship was more valuable than any treasure. As the tour group moved on, Marcus remained by the memorial. The galaxy had learned its lesson well. In the past year, not a single species had threatened human civilians. The major wars had ended. The trade routes were safe. Peace had returned to the galaxy, but it was a different kind of peace. It was peace built on respect rather than ignorance. Peace maintained by the understanding that humanity's tolerance, once broken, would not be easily restored. The age of human patience was over, but the age of human justice would continue for as long as memory endured. And in a galaxy that had witnessed what happened when humanity's tolerance finally snapped, that memory would last forever.